Dear X, I have something painful to tell you, something you will not, no one ever wants to hear. I suppose that if people believed that relationships could transition, morph, evolve, turn into new and beautiful things, passing through periods of deep grief in windowless basements or human-made cocoons, and emerge as beautiful yet fragile new life, then yes, what I have to say would not come as a death sentence. It would come as an invitation to a fresh new life. Freedom, growth, expansion, a new and precious way to live and love. But people, most people, and I believe you, do not believe relationships work or were built to work in this way. You will thus take this as something sad, devastating even, and we will each in our own way grieve. My only hope is that we will both come out the other side whole again, and one day, perhaps a long day away from today, happy. What am I saying? I believe the time has come for our relationship to pivot, if we are to save it.
So that was almost a year ago. But in fact, it was in fact 20 years ago, because just before I married the beautiful man to whom I wrote this letter 20 years in December 2023, I said, I'm not sure I can do this for life, but I think I can do it for 20 years. And after that, I'll need a reevaluation clause. If after 20 years we're still good, we want to keep going, great. We will figure out a way to do that. But let me reevaluate. Let's do that together. I promise you, for 20 years, you will have me fully in. We will have a child, raise him together, and whatever happens, I will be fully in. Can we do this for us? For 20 years, for him? That is what we did. So fast forward to today, we have pivoted our relationship. In early September, we signed the divorce papers. At the time of signing, that beautiful man, tears behind his eyes, said, "Today I lose my wife, but today I hope I gain a friend." Yes, I said. An even better friend. I took his hands in mine and said, "This is the greatest proof of your love for me because you were setting me free." And we sat there holding hands for the first time in years. What happened in those 20 years? Why is it, if we are such good friends now, that I would choose to break something that wasn't broken? Let me try to explain. So our couple was not about being two fully autonomous and fulfilled human beings. Our couple was about being and doing what couples do: good things, happy things, stable things. But in time, I stopped talking. I told myself I was holding space so that he could talk. But all that we talked about was the news and the weather. Have you ever done that? Have you ever stopped talking about the important internal things, maybe the things that would rock the boat, because you wanted peace, ease? It occurs to me that the more a relationship matters, the more the cost, and thus the loss, the less we say. There's a problem here. So why did I break it? I didn't break it. I couldn't breathe anymore. Maybe I should have gone to a therapist, started talking again, and tried again and again, and I did. I tried. But the decade of disconnect had done its damage. So I took something that was broken, and I broke it again, to break something open, to grow again. So here's what I'm here to talk to you about. Talking about our desires changes lives. You may think that you need a strong foundation before you can talk about desires, and you're right, that will work. However, here is something fascinating, I've discovered. When we dare to open that box of desires, when we dare to say what we really, really want, that becomes the very thing that helps us build and rebuild a foundation. It's like a secret passageway. When we dare to share a desire, it's like saying, here is who I am. Here are my important internal things. That vulnerability, that courage to share, that is the thing that makes all the difference. It builds intimacy and it builds foundations. So how did I get to this? I've been on a bit of a journey in the last few years into a new world, a world in which humans do and desire all kinds of things willingly and with consent to and with each other. I'm going to share some of the lessons that I'm taking back from this world. And yes, some of it will be about pleasure and desire and sex. For you see, I've entered into the brains and minds of those in unconventional relationships the last few years. Humans across the spectrum of sexuality and gender have shared their desires and practices with me. Shortly after I started my research, I realized I too had to enter this world. So at the age of 57, I joined an unconventional dating app, Field. Now, before you start imagining me flipping back and forth, left and right, 4,000 people within a matter of months in places like Paris, London, LA, Chicago, New York, Amsterdam, Barcelona, Munich, the Marseille, the Riviera, Mumbai, and Singapore, please know all of that was for research. I spent hundreds of hours reading and listening to and interviewing hundreds of people across the globe. In addition to expert conversations, books, and podcasts, my research began to take shape. I was really surprised. People want to talk about their desires. A lot of them, though, many, are not sharing them with their partners. And they are up to a multitude of fun things right under our noses. And guess what? They are people who look just like you and me. So, guess what happened with my family? Wait, what happened to you? You used to be the normal one. I've never been that normal. However, that being said, I was just as uncomfortable as you may have been. You may be now. Some of you may be feeling a little uncomfortable about the sex part of this talk. God, is she going to say it? Is she going to talk dirty? Is she going to talk about anal? No, this is Germany. Berlin is just over the road. You've got the best sex club in the world, so maybe you're not as nervous as I was a few years ago. Now, some of my best friends are pleasure doms. Others are binary and non-binary folk who participate in polyamory. Others are my kink educators that I can turn to when I have questions like, wait, is this dom I'm talking to a predator? And oh, the stories that emerged. I'm going to share just 3. The stories, they come from unconventional relationships, have universal themes, and those are the desire for connection, acceptance, and understanding. So I want you to meet Sean, not his real name, and these, right? These AI-generated images protect privacy, but they're very, very close to the real people. So this is Sean, and believe it or not, he's in his early 60s. His wife came to him one day and said, I think you should have that one amazing sex act. And so they opened up to ethical non-monogamy. They have been married for 29 years. And after his wife went through menopause, she was feeling like she wanted a lot less sex. After this conversation, Sean got a lot more sex. all with his wife's knowledge and consent. They have now moved on to having, believe it or not, group sex with other partners. They have deepened their love for each other, and I have learned that they are more in love now with each other than ever before. Yes, in their 60s, after nearly 30 years of marriage. Next, we have Triss. Triss is 68. She wrote a Medium article called "I'm Having the Best Sex of My Life." Triss embraced her salacious little slut and started having hot sex with hungry man, all with her husband's consent. Her husband discovered his bisexuality in his 60s. So now the three of them have human sandwich fun, in addition to a lot of other fun things. Here is what Triss said to me in an interview.
I feel younger and happier, less stressed. Prior to opening our marriage, I imagined that I was unattractive because society tells me that older women are. I had a number of physical traits I assumed made me undesirable: fat tummy, gray hair, sparse pubic hair. Plus, I've had a mastectomy, so I only have one breast. The missing one is covered by a beautiful tattoo. All this made me think no one would want me except my husband. To find out that I was entirely wrong about that was a lovely and refreshing and uplifting surprise. It changes every minute of every day, making me feel more joyful, alive. I interact with the world more lightheartedly. I can't really measure these things, but I have no doubt that they add up to improved health. And beyond that, each day is more pleasurable, and I'm just happier overall.
Finally, meet Axel, 41, deeply in love with his 27-year-old girlfriend. She has ADHD, she's on the spectrum, and they are 100% committed to each other. They also have a sexual mismatch in their desires. So, 7 months ago, they opened up their relationship so that Axel could explore his kinks, including experiences with transgender women. His girlfriend says, "Great, go for it. Enjoy yourself, be safe, and no, I don't need to hear the details." So, the two of them see separate play partners, and they respect each other's boundaries. They also call each other the loves of each other's lives. Are you uncomfortable? These are normal, everyday stories for me, and maybe they do shake us up a little bit. But these are stories of love, healing, understanding, and the power of open communication to deepen a connection. No matter the relationship style, we are all trying to achieve the same thing. We want to live a happy life. And no one wants to hurt or be hurt by another person. Well, not unless we have explicit consent. Joking aside, some of us know what we want. Many of us are still learning. And to be honest, what we want evolves through time. So some of us are talking, and many of us are not. In my journey through these unconventional relationships, I have seen the cost of silence and the power of dialogue. You know what happens when we stop talking, don't you? Infidelity, abuse, erosion of intimacy. But I have also seen what happens in relationships where people begin to talk, the healing that comes when they find their voice. People like Triss and her husband, Sean and his wife, and Axel and his girlfriend. People who dare to talk about their desires openly experience deeper connection, intimacy. So, I encourage you to consider, what would it take for you to share your deepest fears and desires with your partners? And what would that mean for your relationships if you approach those conversations with curiosity and compassion versus judgment and shame? As I look back on this journey, I'm really, really, really surprised and heartened by the lessons I'm taking back. The stories I've heard, the conversations I have had, the experiences I have witnessed. They've not just expanded my knowledge of desire and pleasure, and boy, has that expanded. They've also encouraged me to challenge my own biases and assumptions. So let me share 5 of my lessons with you. Number 1, embrace the unfamiliar. If it scares you, get curious. That is how we grow. Number 2, question relationship scripts. What we call broken might be a doorway to something new, possibly even better. Number 3, trust that sharing desires builds bridges. Vulnerability creates connection. Number 4, normalize uncomfortable conversations about desires, boundaries, and how we show up for each other. This is how we deepen connections, not break them. And number 5, design and redesign relationships consciously. Rings and rules can serve as guide rails, but self-awareness, empathy, communication, co-creation, and iteration can mean that all of us can have the relationships that we want. The book I'm writing on conscious relationship design explores how we can design for our wants over and through time, through our life phases and changes. Sometimes we want security. Sometimes we want autonomy and freedom. Other times we want growth. Other times we want novelty and variety. A lot of the time we want all of that in bigger and smaller measures, depending on where we are in our lives as individuals and in our relationships. So, I challenge you. What unspeakable desire will you share today? And how will you make space for someone else to do the same? It is never too late. Deeper connections start with difficult conversations. If you're going to start anywhere, start with desire. Thank you.